Hello there, and welcome to Sleepy Science Academy. Tonight, we are drifting gently into a quieter corner of the natural world, one that exists mostly out of sight, beneath leaves, beneath soil, beneath the rhythm of everyday attention. This is a story about mushrooms, not as curiosities on a forest floor, but as patient architects of life, slow connectors, ancient recyclers, and quiet companions to almost everything that grows. There is no need to remember facts or follow ideas closely. Let the words pass over you like soft rain through trees. If something stays, it stays. If not, that is perfectly fine. For now, simply settle in, breathe slowly, and allow your thoughts to soften as we begin. Mushrooms belong to a kingdom of life entirely their own. For a long time, humans assumed they were simply unusual plants. They grow from the ground, they do not move, and they seem rooted to one place. But fungi are neither plant nor animal. They do not draw energy from sunlight. They do not consume food the way animals do. Instead, they absorb nutrients directly from their surroundings, releasing enzymes that dissolve organic matter before quietly drawing it inward. This difference may sound subtle, but it places fungi on a separate branch of life altogether, as distant from plants as animals are. The fungal kingdom is ancient beyond imagination. Long before flowers opened or trees stretched skyward, fungi were already present. Molecular evidence suggests they have existed for over 1 billion years. They survived eras when the planet looked nothing like it does now, when life clung to oceans and land was bare rock. When you see a mushroom today, rising briefly from soil or wood, you are witnessing a lineage that has endured planetary change, mass extinctions, and the slow reshaping of continents. What we call a mushroom is only a small and temporary part of the organism. The visible cap and stem are reproductive structures designed to release spores and then disappear. The true body of the fungus lives elsewhere, hidden from view. Beneath the ground, inside wood, and through layers of leaf litter spreads a vast network of fine threads called mycelium. These threads branch and rebranch, forming living webs that can stretch for meters, hectares, and sometimes miles. A single fungus may cover an area larger than several football fields, even though only a few small mushrooms ever appear at the surface. This hidden growth happens slowly and patiently. Mycelium moves through soil grain by grain, wrapping around roots, stones, and decaying matter. It does not hurry. It does not announce itself. It simply grows where conditions allow, pausing when they do not. Years may pass before a mushroom ever forms. When one finally appears, often after rain, it can feel sudden and surprising. But it is only the visible moment of a process that has been unfolding quietly for a very long time. Beneath forests, mycelium forms some of the most complex living networks on Earth. These networks connect not just fungal threads to one another, but plants and trees as well. Many plants form partnerships with fungi, linking their roots directly into these underground webs. Through them, water, minerals, and nutrients flow from soil to plant, and sugars flow back from plant to fungus. This exchange is steady and balanced, neither side dominating the other. It is cooperation shaped by deep time. In forests, these connections can link entire communities of trees. A large sunlit tree may pass excess sugars through fungal pathways to smaller trees growing in shade. Seedlings struggling to establish themselves can receive quiet support from older trees nearby. When one plant experiences stress, chemical signals can move through the network, subtly preparing others. Nothing here is rushed or dramatic. It is a slow, distributed intelligence, more like a whisper than a signal, moving beneath the surface. Because this system remains invisible, it is easy to forget how extensive it is. Every step through a woodland crosses countless living threads. The ground beneath you is not empty space filled with dirt, but a layered, breathing structure, woven together by organisms that never seek attention. The forest above is shaped by the conversations below. Some fungal organisms grow to extraordinary sizes. In certain forests, scientists have discovered individual fungi covering thousands of acres. These organisms may be thousands of years old, older than written language, older than many human civilizations. They have expanded gradually, year by year, through soil and roots, never forming a single visible body that reveals their true scale. To walk through such a forest is to walk across one continuous living being, vast, quiet, and almost entirely unseen. Fungi were essential in shaping life on land. When early plants first began moving out of water and onto rock and soil, they faced an enormous challenge. Nutrients were scarce, and early root systems were weak. Fungi formed partnerships with these plants, helping them draw minerals from stone and sediment. Without these alliances, plants may never have established themselves on land. Forests, grasslands, and gardens all trace their existence back to this cooperation. Every tree standing today carries echoes of those ancient agreements. Mushrooms themselves live brief lives above ground. Some emerge overnight, swelling rapidly with water after rain. Others appear only once every few years, responding to precise combinations of moisture and temperature. A familiar patch of ground may remain empty for seasons, then suddenly host a cluster of delicate forms that vanish days later. These appearances can feel magical, but they are simply the visible expression of long preparation below. Despite their fragile look, mushrooms can be surprisingly strong. As they grow, their cells absorb water and generate pressure, enough in some cases to crack asphalt or lift paving stones. This strength is focused and patient, not explosive. Growth happens cell by cell, pressing gently but persistently against whatever lies above. Even in cities, fungi find ways to rise, reminding us that life adapts quietly rather than forcefully. Some mushrooms glow softly in darkness. In certain forests, bioluminescent fungi produce pale green or blue light, illuminating decaying wood with a gentle shimmer. The glow is subtle, never bright, but unmistakable when seen. Scientists believe this light may attract insects that help spread spores, though it may also be a byproduct of fungal chemistry. For those who encounter it, the effect feels otherworldly, as though the forest itself is breathing light. Others grow in slow, expanding circles known as fairy rings. These rings form as mycelium spreads outward evenly from a central point, exhausting nutrients behind it and fruiting only at the edges. Over decades or centuries, the circle widens, sometimes spanning large meadows. Some fairy rings have been growing quietly since long before modern towns or roads appeared nearby. They are living records of time measured not in days, but in generations. Mushrooms release vast numbers of spores. A single mushroom can release billions, sometimes trillions, of microscopic particles into the air. These spores drift invisibly, carried by wind across landscapes and oceans. Most never grow into new fungi, but enough to ensure continuation. Every breath you take contains spores, unnoticed and harmless, part of a constant biological snowfall. Life spreading quietly, without intention or urgency. As you rest here now, it can be comforting to imagine this hidden world continuing its slow work. Beneath forests, beneath fields, beneath the places you know well, fungi grow, connect, recycle, and endure. They do not rush. They do not compete loudly. They simply exist, shaping the world through patience. And in that steady presence, there is something deeply calming, a reminder that not everything needs to be seen to matter, and not everything that matters needs to move quickly. Beneath forests and fields, fungi continue their work without pause. The networks they build are not rigid structures, but living pathways that adapt constantly to their surroundings. A fallen branch becomes a new root. A decaying leaf becomes a source of energy. Stones, roots, and soil particles are not obstacles, but features to be worked around and through. Mycelium threads sense moisture, temperature, and chemistry, adjusting direction in ways that feel almost deliberate, though no thought is involved. It is responsiveness shaped by time rather than intention. The world beneath the ground is darker, cooler, and slower than the one above. Here, growth is measured in millimeters per day or less. Progress is quiet. This slowness is not a limitation, but a strength. By moving gradually, fungi avoid the extremes that challenge faster organisms. They persist through drought by pausing. They survive cold by remaining dormant. When conditions improve, growth resumes as if nothing were lost. Time behaves differently at this scale. Some fungi form relationships not only with plants, but with entire ecosystems. In forests, they regulate how nutrients move, how carbon is stored, and how decay unfolds. When a tree falls, fungi arrive early, beginning the slow process of transformation. Wood that once held leaves high in sunlight becomes soft and dark, slowly returning to soil. Insects follow, then mosses, then seedlings. What looks like loss is actually preparation for renewal. Fungi make this cycle possible. The shapes mushrooms take above ground reflect this diversity of purpose. Some rise as delicate umbrellas, thin stems lifting fragile caps. Others spread sideways as shelves, layered like pages in a book pressed against tree trunks. Some appear as branching forms that resemble coral or frost patterns. Others swell into round puffballs, waiting for rain or footsteps to release their spores in soft clouds. Each form represents a solution refined over millions of years, shaped by wind, moisture, and the need to release life into the air. There are mushrooms that never see the light at all. Truffles grow entirely underground, hidden from view, their presence announced only by scent. Their aromas are complex and strong, designed to attract animals that dig them up and carry their spores elsewhere. This strategy trades visibility for chemistry. Instead of releasing spores to the wind, truffles rely on movement, digestion, and chance. It is a different path, but no less effective. Other fungi glow faintly in darkness. On warm nights in certain forests, fallen logs may shine with a soft green light. The glow is subtle, never bright enough to overwhelm darkness, but enough to be noticed. It feels accidental, as though the forest has forgotten to turn something off. These lights have inspired stories for centuries, but their reality is quieter than myth. A chemical reaction, energy released gently, without sound. Mushrooms, also vary greatly in color. Some are pale and almost translucent, blending into misty forest light. Others are vivid, red, blue, yellow, or purple, standing out sharply against soil and leaves. These colors come from pigments that may protect against sunlight, deter animals, or simply result from internal chemistry. Not every feature needs a clear purpose. In nature, beauty often appears as a side effect of function rather than a goal. The same diversity exists at microscopic scales. Most fungi never form mushrooms at all. They live as invisible threads in soil, as single cells floating through air, or as soft coatings on surfaces. These microscopic fungi are everywhere. They move quietly through ecosystems, breaking down materials, forming partnerships, and cycling nutrients without ever drawing attention. The mushrooms people notice are only brief expressions of a much larger presence. Humans have lived alongside fungi for as long as there have been humans. Long before science named enzymes or networks, people noticed patterns. Certain mushrooms appeared after rain. Some returned to the same places year after year. Some nourished, others harmed. Knowledge grew slowly, passed through stories and experience. In many cultures, mushroom gathering became seasonal, tied to weather and memory. Certain places were revisited quietly, known only to those who walked them before. Fungi also entered human life in subtler ways. Yeasts, single-celled fungi, became companions in bread, beer, and wine. By consuming sugars and releasing gas or alcohol, they transformed grains and fruits into foods that lasted longer and tasted different. These processes were used long before anyone understood why they worked. The fungi did not change. Human understanding simply caught up. Cheese, too, owes much of its character to fungi. Some varieties rely on specific molds to create textures and flavors that would not exist otherwise. These molds grow slowly, changing the food from the inside out. Time again becomes an ingredient. Flavor develops not through force, but through waiting. Even now, fungi continue to shape the world in ways that remain mostly unnoticed. They help soils recover. They break down pollutants. They adapt to environments humans have altered. Some species are studied for their ability to transform waste into something usable. Others are observed simply to understand how life persists under pressure. Fungi rarely seek the surface. Their influence comes from what they do quietly, beneath attention. In forests, in fields, in gardens, and beneath cities, this hidden kingdom remains active. Threads extend, pause, and reconnect. Nutrients move. Materials change form. Nothing is rushed. Nothing is wasted. Growth and decay remain balanced, guided by conditions rather than control. As this unseen work continues, mushrooms rise briefly and then fade, leaving little trace behind. What remains is the network, enduring and patient, shaping the world without ever needing to be seen. In many landscapes, the presence of fungi is marked not by abundance, but by absence. A field that produces fairy rings one year may remain quiet the next. A forest path once lined with mushrooms may show nothing but leaves and soil for seasons at a time. This inconsistency is part of how fungi live. Fruiting is not guaranteed. It happens only when conditions align with enough precision to justify the energy cost. Moisture, temperature, available nutrients, and even subtle shifts in air pressure can influence the decision to produce a mushroom. When the moment passes, the fungus withdraws again into invisibility. Some fungal organisms live for centuries without ever producing a visible mushroom. Their mycelium spreads slowly underground, interacting with roots, stones, and decaying matter, yet never forming the structures people tend to notice. Others fruit only rarely, perhaps once every few years. When they do, the event can feel special, even sacred, as though the forest has revealed something it usually keeps hidden. These rare appearances remind us that visibility is not a measure of importance. Much of what sustains ecosystems remains unseen. The pace of fungal life contrasts sharply with human expectations of growth and progress. There is no hurry, no race toward a finish. A fungal network may spend years expanding in a single direction, then stop entirely, waiting for conditions to change. If the environment becomes hostile, growth pauses. If nutrients disappear, the network shifts elsewhere. Nothing is wasted in movement that leads nowhere. Even abandoned paths remain part of the organism's history, evidence of exploration rather than failure. This flexibility allows fungi to inhabit extreme environments. Some species thrive in frozen tundra, remaining active beneath snow. Others live in deserts, waiting patiently for brief rains before resuming growth. Fungi have been found in deep caves, on mountain peaks, and within rocks themselves. Their ability to persist across such varied conditions comes from their willingness to wait. Survival is not about speed, but about timing. Mushrooms themselves reflect this sensitivity to conditions. Many species appear only after a precise sequence of weather events. A warm period followed by rain, then a sudden drop in temperature may trigger fruiting across wide areas. Entire forests can seem to respond at once, with mushrooms appearing in synchrony. This timing increases the chances that spores from different individuals will mix, maintaining diversity. It is coordination without communication, alignment shaped by shared response rather than signal. Seasonal rhythms influence which mushrooms appear and when. In spring, certain species emerge as soil warms and moisture remains high. These early mushrooms often complete their life cycles quickly, taking advantage of brief windows before summer heat arrives. In autumn, as temperatures cool and rain becomes more frequent, diversity peaks. The forest floor fills with forms of every shape and color, many of them appearing for only a short time before frost returns. Cold does not necessarily end fungal activity. Some mushrooms withstand freezing temperatures and continue growing during brief thaws. Their cells contain compounds that limit ice damage, allowing tissues to remain intact. Even when mushrooms collapse under frost, the mycelium below often survives unharmed. When warmth returns, growth resumes. This resilience allows fungi to occupy niches that would be inaccessible to many other organisms. The longevity of fungal networks becomes especially visible in fairy rings. These expanding circles of mushrooms mark the slow outward growth of a single organism over decades or centuries. Each year, the ring moves slightly farther from its origin, sometimes only a few inches. Over long periods, these movements accumulate into wide circles that outlast fences, buildings, and even the memory of who first noticed them. Some fairy rings documented in Europe are believed to have been growing since the Middle Ages. Such persistence raises questions about individuality and age. A fungus that extends across large areas and regenerates itself continuously does not age in the way animals do. There is no clear moment when it is born or dies. Instead, parts are replaced, while the whole continues. This challenges common ideas about lifespan and identity. In fungi, continuity matters more than form. The microscopic world of fungi mirrors this abundance and persistence. Yeasts, molds, and filamentous fungi inhabit air, water, and surfaces everywhere. They form communities that change rapidly, responding to moisture, temperature, and available food. When conditions are favorable, growth can be explosive. When they are not, fungi retreat into spores, waiting. This ability to switch between active growth and suspended existence allows fungi to endure environments that fluctuate unpredictably. Molds are often noticed when they appear in homes, spreading across damp walls or forgotten food. Though unwelcome indoors, these fungi are doing what they evolved to do, breaking down organic material. Their fuzzy appearance is the result of countless tiny structures lifting spores into the air. Each patch represents a network operating at a scale far smaller than the mushrooms people recognize, yet just as essential. Yeasts operate at an even smaller scale. These single-celled fungi reproduce by dividing, living independently rather than forming networks. They float, settle, and multiply wherever sugars are available. On fruit skins, in soil, and in water, yeasts wait for opportunity. Their simplicity is not a limitation, but a specialization. By remaining small and flexible, they colonize environments where larger organisms cannot. Human use of fungi often developed without understanding their biology. Bread rose, wine fermented, and cheese aged because fungi were present, not because people knew why. Over time, these relationships became traditions, then technologies. Today, fungal processes are studied, refined, and controlled, yet they remain rooted in the same metabolic pathways that existed long before humans appeared. In agriculture and ecology, fungi continue to demonstrate their importance. Soils rich in fungal networks retain nutrients more effectively and support healthier plant communities. Forests with intact fungal diversity recover more quickly from disturbance. When fungi are disrupted, entire systems weaken. This dependence reveals how deeply integrated fungi are into the functioning of life on land. Even in human-altered environments, fungi persist. They grow through cracks in pavement, colonize abandoned buildings, and inhabit soils altered by pollution. Some species are now being studied for their ability to transform waste materials, breaking down substances once thought indestructible. These applications reflect fungi's long history as problem solvers, organisms that approach complexity not with force, but with chemistry and time. As all of this continues, largely unnoticed, mushrooms appear briefly and then vanish. They leave no lasting mark above ground, yet the systems they represent endure. Beneath forests, fields, and cities, fungal networks continue to extend, pause, and adapt. Their work does not demand attention. It simply continues, shaping the world quietly, steadily, and without interruption. Beyond their role in forests and soils, fungi also shape relationships between living organisms in subtle and unexpected ways. Many plants depend so completely on fungal partners that they struggle to survive without them. Roots alone are often inefficient at extracting nutrients from soil. When fungi connect to these roots, they effectively extend the plant's reach, accessing water and minerals far beyond what roots could manage on their own. In return, plants share energy produced from sunlight. This exchange happens constantly, quietly sustaining growth above ground through cooperation below. Some plants take this relationship even further. Certain orchids produce seeds so small they contain almost no stored energy. For these seeds to grow, they must encounter a compatible fungus immediately. Without that fungal partner, the seed remains dormant and eventually fails. In these cases, the fungus provides nourishment until the plant can sustain itself. A few orchid species never become independent at all. They remain pale and leafless, living their entire lives supported by fungal networks beneath the soil. These plants exist as living reminders that independence is not the only successful strategy in nature. Animals, too, participate in fungal relationships. In tropical forests, leaf-cutting ants cultivate fungi as their primary food source. The ants gather leaves not to eat directly, but to feed carefully tended fungal gardens underground. The fungus breaks down plant material, producing nutrient-rich structures that sustain the colony. The ants protect the fungus from contamination, remove unwanted growth, and maintain ideal conditions. Neither species can survive without the other. Over millions of years, they have evolved together into a tightly linked system, a form of agriculture developed long before humans practiced farming. Similar relationships exist with termites, which cultivate fungi inside elaborate underground nests. The termites gather dead plant matter and provide it to fungi that can break down tough fibers. The termites then consume the fungus, gaining access to nutrients they could not otherwise digest. These systems operate continuously, unseen beneath soil, supporting some of the largest insect colonies on Earth. What appears from above as a quiet landscape may conceal vast underground communities sustained by fungal cooperation. Fungi also influence ecosystems by regulating competition. Some fungi limit the growth of certain plants while supporting others, shaping which species dominate an area. In forests, this balance prevents any one tree species from overwhelming the system. Diversity remains stable not through constant struggle, but through mediated relationships. Fungi act as quiet moderators, redistributing resources and influencing outcomes without direct conflict. The chemistry fungi use to interact with their environment is remarkably versatile. Over evolutionary time, fungi developed enzymes capable of breaking down complex molecules. These same enzymes allow some species to degrade substances introduced by human activity. Certain fungi can absorb heavy metals from contaminated soils. Others can break down petroleum compounds, pesticides, and synthetic materials. This ability has drawn scientific interest as researchers explore how fungi might assist in environmental recovery. The solutions fungi offer are rarely fast, but they are thorough, working steadily over long periods. Plastic, one of the most persistent materials humans have created, has also met fungal chemistry. Researchers have identified fungal species capable of slowly breaking down plastic polymers. While these processes are not yet practical on large scales, they demonstrate an important principle. Given time, fungi adapt to almost any available resource. What appears inert or indestructible may simply require the right organism and enough patience. This adaptability is one reason fungi have survived every major extinction event in Earth's history. When environments change dramatically, fungi respond not by fleeing, but by adjusting metabolism, growth patterns, and partnerships. They can wait out unfavorable periods in the form of spores, reactivating when conditions improve. This ability to pause life processes without ending them allows fungi to persist through extremes that eliminate less flexible organisms. The fungal life cycle reflects this resilience. Spores are released in extraordinary numbers, drifting through air and water. Most will never grow, but some will land in places where moisture, nutrients, and temperature align. There, a new network begins, extending cautiously, sensing its surroundings. Growth is exploratory rather than directed, spreading until it encounters resistance or opportunity. Over time, these networks become established, integrated into their environments. Mushrooms themselves are temporary expressions of this deeper process. Their appearance signals that conditions are favorable for reproduction. Once spores are released, the mushroom's role is complete. It softens, collapses, and returns to the soil. Nothing is wasted. The materials that formed it become resources for other organisms. Even disappearance is productive. Color, shape, and texture vary widely among mushrooms, yet none of these features are permanent. Weather alters them quickly. Rain washes surfaces smooth. Sunlight fades pigments. Insects feed on caps and stems. Time erases detail. What remains is continuity rather than form. The network below persists regardless of what happens above. Human interactions with mushrooms reflect this fleeting quality. Foragers learn that timing matters. A mushroom present one day may be gone the next. Knowledge of seasons, locations, and conditions becomes essential. This attentiveness encourages observation and patience. Mushroom gathering rewards those who notice small changes rather than those who rush. Across cultures, mushrooms have inspired stories, traditions, and rituals. Their sudden appearances, unusual shapes, and brief lives have linked them to ideas of mystery and transformation. Yet beneath these stories lies a consistent truth. Mushrooms are neither magical nor random. They follow rules shaped by biology and environment. Their unpredictability comes not from chaos, but from complexity. As attention shifts back to the broader landscape, it becomes clear that fungi operate everywhere at once. They bind soil, nourish plants, recycle matter, and influence climate. They do so without movement, sound, or visibility. Their success lies in cooperation, chemistry, and time. In a world often dominated by speed and noise, fungi represent a different approach to survival. Beneath cities, fungal networks weave through soils altered by construction. Beneath forests, they sustain ancient trees. Beneath fields, they influence crops and harvests. The same principles apply everywhere. Growth where possible. Pause where necessary. Adaptation rather than resistance. Mushrooms will continue to appear and vanish. Forests will continue to change. Seasons will shift. Through all of this, fungi remain, extending quietly through the spaces beneath attention, shaping outcomes without ever asking to be noticed. As the seasons pass, fungal activity responds not to calendars, but to patterns. Rainfall, temperature shifts, and the chemistry of soil guide what happens next. A stretch of dry weather may quiet visible growth entirely, while life below ground continues slowly, conserving energy. When moisture returns, networks awaken, expanding gently into new spaces. This responsiveness allows fungi to remain aligned with their environments rather than imposing themselves upon them. In woodlands, fallen trees become long-term projects for fungi. A trunk lying across the forest floor may take decades to fully decompose. During that time, different fungal species arrive in sequence. Early colonizers establish themselves quickly, breaking down accessible compounds. Later species arrive to process tougher materials. This succession creates layered habitats within a single log, supporting insects, mosses, and seedlings along the way. What appears static is actually a slow unfolding of interactions guided by fungal presence. This gradual transformation highlights fungi's role in carbon cycling. Carbon captured by trees during photosynthesis becomes stored in wood. When fungi decompose that wood, carbon returns to soil and atmosphere in regulated ways. The balance between capture and release influences climate over long periods. Changes in fungal activity can shift this balance, making fungi important participants in Earth's larger systems. Their influence operates quietly, but at planetary scale. Some fungi interact directly with living animals in more visible ways. Certain species produce compounds that deter insects or discourage grazing. Others attract animals deliberately, using scent or color to encourage contact. These strategies influence how spores travel and where new growth begins. Movement through animals creates dispersal patterns different from wind, introducing fungi into new environments where conditions may be favorable. Despite these interactions, fungi rarely dominate landscapes alone. Their success depends on integration rather than control. They rely on plants for energy, animals for movement, and environmental conditions for timing. This interdependence keeps ecosystems balanced. When one component changes, fungi adjust, redistributing resources rather than collapsing systems entirely. Human, altered environments present new challenges. Urban soils are compacted, polluted, and fragmented. Yet fungi still establish themselves where they can. They grow in parks, gardens, abandoned lots, and beneath pavement. Some species adapt to novel materials, breaking down treated wood, paper, and other manufactured substances. These adaptations demonstrate fungi's capacity to respond creatively to unfamiliar conditions. In scientific research, fungi continue to surprise. New species are discovered regularly, many with properties previously unknown. Some produce antibiotics, others enzymes with industrial potential. These discoveries remind researchers that the fungal kingdom remains largely unexplored. Most species have not been studied in detail. Their capabilities likely extend far beyond current understanding. Fungi also challenge assumptions about intelligence and communication. While they do not think or decide, their networks respond dynamically to information. Changes in nutrient availability alter growth direction. Damage to one part of a network triggers reallocation elsewhere. These responses resemble problem solving, though they arise from simple rules applied repeatedly over time. Complexity emerges without planning. This emergent behavior contributes to the stability of ecosystems. Rather than relying on central control, fungal networks distribute function across countless threads. If one pathway fails, others compensate. This redundancy allows systems to persist through disturbance. Fire, storms, and drought may disrupt surface life, but underground networks often survive, ready to support regrowth. In forests recovering from fire, fungi are among the first organisms to re-establish themselves. They stabilize soil, retain nutrients, and create conditions suitable for plant seedlings. Without this early fungal presence, recovery would be slower and less predictable. Fire, often viewed only as destruction, becomes part of a cycle where fungi help guide renewal. Fungi also influence water dynamics in soil. Their networks improve soil structure, allowing water to infiltrate more evenly and reducing erosion. This effect benefits plants and microorganisms alike. Healthy fungal communities contribute to resilient landscapes that better withstand heavy rainfall and drought. In agricultural settings, these same principles apply. Soils rich in fungal diversity support healthier crops with reduced need for external inputs. Farmers increasingly recognize the value of fungal networks in maintaining fertility. Practices that protect soil life often improve long-term productivity. Again, the benefit comes not from intervention, but from allowing existing systems to function. Mushrooms themselves remain the most familiar symbols of this hidden work. Their appearances mark moments when conditions align perfectly. Each fruiting event represents accumulated energy released briefly before returning to stillness. The variability of these events reflects the complexity beneath. No two seasons produce the same patterns. Familiar places change subtly from year to year. As people walk through forests or fields, they may notice mushrooms or not. Either way, the processes continue. Fungi do not depend on observation. Their influence does not increase when seen, nor diminish when ignored. They operate according to chemistry, timing, and connection, rather than attention. In this way, fungi offer a perspective on persistence. Success does not require constant visibility or recognition. It can emerge through consistency, adaptation, and quiet cooperation. The world shaped by fungi is one of continuity rather than spectacle. Beneath leaves, beneath soil, beneath structures built by humans, fungal networks extend and retract, connect, and pause. They remain sensitive to change, yet grounded in slow processes that resist disruption. Their presence reminds us that much of what sustains life unfolds beyond awareness, guided by patterns older than memory. As time moves forward, fungi will continue their work. They will recycle what falls, support what grows, and adapt to what changes. Mushrooms will rise briefly, mark a moment, and fade. What endures is the network, steady and patient, shaping the world quietly, without interruption. Across long spans of time, fungi reveal a pattern that repeats again and again. Growth, followed by pause. Appearance, followed by withdrawal. Expansion, followed by redistribution. This rhythm is not accidental. It reflects an approach to existence shaped by limits rather than ambition. Fungi do not attempt to dominate their environments. They explore what is available, use what can be used, and then recede when conditions change. In doing so, they leave space for others. This pattern can be seen even in how fungal networks interact with one another. Different species often occupy the same soil, weaving past and around each other. Competition exists, that it rarely results in complete exclusion. Boundaries fall, territories overlap. Chemical signals mediate encounters. Over time, stable arrangements emerge, allowing many species to coexist in the same space. Diversity is maintained not through victory, but through balance. Fungal networks also display memory of a kind. Areas once explored may be avoided later if nutrients are exhausted. Pathways reinforced by repeated success remain active. Those that lead nowhere fade. This is not memory as humans understand it, but the accumulation of past interaction shaping future structure. The network becomes a record of what has worked before. Experience is stored physically, not mentally. Because of this, fungal systems adapt smoothly rather than abruptly. Change does not require reinvention. It builds on what already exists. This quality allows fungi to respond to gradual environmental shifts with stability rather than collapse. In a changing climate, this adaptability becomes increasingly important. While some species may decline, others adjust, migrate, or alter timing. The fungal kingdom reshapes itself continuously, often without obvious disruption. Mushrooms continue to serve as markers of these changes. Shifts in fruiting seasons reveal warming temperatures. Appearances in new regions reflect altered conditions. These signs are subtle and easily overlooked, but they form part of a larger story about how life responds to long-term change. Fungi register these shifts quietly, integrating them into their growth patterns rather than resisting them. Human awareness of fungi has grown, but remains limited. Many people encounter mushrooms only as food or as brief features of woodland walks. The deeper roles fungi play remain largely outside everyday attention. Even so, interest continues to expand. Scientists, ecologists, and growers explore fungal potential in medicine, agriculture, and environmental repair. Each discovery reveals how much remains unknown. Medicinal compounds produced by fungi have already shaped human health. Antibiotics, immunosuppressants, and cholesterol-lowering drugs all trace their origins to fungal chemistry. These compounds evolved not to help humans, but to serve fungal survival. Humans simply learned to listen. This pattern suggests that fungi may hold many more solutions not yet recognized. Their chemical diversity reflects billions of years of experimentation. At the same time, fungi remind us of limits. They demonstrate that progress does not always mean expansion. Sometimes it means restraint. Fungal success lies in knowing when not to grow, when to wait, and when to redirect energy elsewhere. In ecosystems, this restraint stabilizes relationships rather than exhausting resources. When forests age, fungal networks grow denser and more complex. Old-growth forests often contain fungal communities that cannot be replaced quickly once disturbed. These networks support tree health, soil stability, and biodiversity in ways that younger systems cannot replicate. Their loss represents not just the removal of trees, but the disruption of intricate underground relationships built over centuries. Yet even when disturbed, fungi often remain among the first to return. After storms, fires, or human caring, fungal spores arrive almost immediately. Networks begin rebuilding beneath the surface long before plants reclaim the space. This quiet persistence underlies ecological recovery. Without fungi, regeneration would stall. In gardens, farms, and managed landscapes, the same principles apply. Where fungal life is supported, systems tend to be more resilient. Where it is suppressed, problems often multiply. This understanding slowly reshapes how people approach land use. Rather than controlling every variable, allowing fungal processes to operate naturally often leads to better outcomes. Mushrooms continue to appear in moments that feel unexpected. A cluster beside a path, a ring in a field, a shelf on a fallen tree. These appearances invite curiosity without demanding explanation. They offer brief glimpses into a world that operates mostly out of sight. Across cultures and time, mushrooms have symbolized mystery, transition, and transformation. These associations arise not from imagination alone, but from observation. Mushrooms embody change that happens quietly. They turn what is fallen into something new. They appear briefly, then return to the unseen. The deeper fungal world mirrors this transformation continuously. Matter moves from one form to another. Energy flows through networks. Life supports life without spectacle. In this system, nothing is permanent, yet nothing is lost. As landscapes shift and seasons turn, fungal networks continue extending beneath them. Threads branch, meet, and part. Growth follows moisture. Pause follows drought. Time moves slowly, measured in accumulation rather than urgency. Mushrooms rise when conditions allow, release what they carry, and fade. What remains is the network, still present, still responsive, still shaping the ground beneath every step. This hidden continuity offers a different way of understanding life, one where influence does not depend on visibility and endurance does not require force. The fungal kingdom does not announce itself. It does not seek attention or recognition. Yet it holds together forests, feeds plants, supports animals, and recycles the world continuously. Its work unfolds beneath awareness, guided by patterns older than memory and quieter than thought. And so, beneath leaves, beneath soil, beneath places familiar and unseen, fungi continue their steady work. They connect, transform, and persist. Mushrooms mark moments. Networks endure. The world turns, and beneath it all, this hidden life continues, patient, adaptive, and quietly essential.